So welcome to tonight's webinar, and I'm delighted to introduce Antony Price, who's here from PayPlan. I'm going to give you some really key insights into how to just manage that financial insecurity, because obviously whilst you're under your FTP, the landscape is a little bit uncertain for you, to say the least. So I'm sure Antony will be able to give you some really practical advice on things that you can access, things that you can think about, maybe a slightly new way of thinking whilst you're undergoing this additional pressure around your finances. So I'll hand over to Antony. If you've got any questions as you go, just pop them in the chat and I'll field those at the end, and we'll have a good opportunity for Q&A at the end. Okay. So thanks ever so much for being here, Antony.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'll just quickly introduce myself in terms of my role and my background a little bit more, and then we'll get straight into the actual slides and the content today. So my name's Antony, and I'm one of the partnership managers here at PayPlan. So PayPlan is an organization that has been offering free and confidential debt support for the last 33 years. Not just here to talk about debt, though, today. We're here to look at the wider landscape of finances and that kind of well-rounded financial well-being that's so important to each and every one of us. I've been in this world for the last 21 years, and what I can say is that over the last 21 years, not a lot's changed when it comes to talking about money out loud and with others. We tend to keep things quite private. That's how we are often brought up. So we know that actually talking about money can be hard. It shouldn't be, but it is. And so that's why I'm really, really pleased to be doing this tonight and just sharing some of the insight that I've learned over the last couple of decades, and just things that can get you thinking, and just things that can hopefully make you feel more confident when it comes to money management, and just some of those aspects to help you boost your income, reduce your outgoings, and things that you can pass on to others. It could be that you're here just to get those little nuggets of information to give to perhaps a relative, a friend, a family, a partner, whoever it is. Let's spread the word, let's spread the knowledge, and let's just help everybody around us as well. So the session today, I'm going to be using lots of different slides and talking about lots of different topics today, and we'll keep up a momentum. There'll be a lot. You might come away thinking, blimey, there's a lot to think about there. But the good news is that we'll also be following up with lots of resources as well. So I'm going to put links into the chat at the end of the session. The slides are going to contain lots of bits of information as well, so you don't need to worry about scribbling everything down. You'll get lots of practical tools that I can follow up with. So everything that we talk about today, you'll get little links to and just bits that will make things easy. So I say you might be here for you. You could be equally here to gather some information for others as well as just yourself. And that's great, because actually when things get tough, when money matters, when it can get, a little bit difficult at times, it can often feel quite a lonely place to be. And that is because we often don't talk to others about our financial affairs, perhaps. So let me, everybody, you are not on your own. If you're feeling the pinch right now, you are not on your own at all. We're all probably feeling the pinch to a degree anyway. But to give you a little bit of insight to what's happening in the UK, here's a few statistics that you can see on the screen. So 22% of us in the UK have less than £100 in savings at the moment. So we don't necessarily have what we call a lot of financial resilience. So, a little bit of a buffer. We often don't have much of that. 17% of us have a situation where we're often borrowing to buy for food, or we're paying for bills, so we're having to borrow to do that and keep things afloat. And 52% of us don't necessarily have a kind of a plan for the future and what we're going to look at in terms of financial future and retirement, etc. So it is tough, but what I'm really pleased to say is there's things that all of us can do to just help us to elevate a little bit and just to feel a little bit more secure with our finances. One of the other reasons why it does feel a bit of a lonely place to be is because we don't talk as a nation about money. And there's lots of reasons why that is, but actually the top 5 you can see here. So 18% of people will say that they don't talk to others about their money worries or just about money in general because of perhaps some embarrassment or even shame. And we should never feel like that. We all have to use money. All of us have tough moments in our lives. So it shouldn't feel that way, but often it does. Maybe it's about not wanting to burden others with our problems, and we often keep things quite close to our chest and we keep it secret or we keep it private. This middle one, 15% of people say it's about how they were brought up. So a lot of people saying, I was brought up not to talk about money to other people. I think it's more than 15% in reality. I mean, a piece of research only shows you a little glimpse into what really happens. Um, but I think a lot of us were probably brought up thinking, well, you don't talk about money in public, you don't talk about politics. Certain topics were off the table, so to speak. So maybe it's about upbringing as well. Or the next one, maybe it's around stress and anxiety. And that can be true. It can be a tough thing to talk about. It can make us feel more stressful or anxious. But the reality is that actually not talking about money and not getting support from others will no doubt cause further stress and anxiety anyway. And then maybe it's about the pressure we put on ourselves, us thinking, I should be doing better than this. I should be in a better position than this. Whatever the reasons are, let's change that. One of the reasons why we're here today, let's start talking about money. Let's start to share and let's just, try to get help where we can get it. And at the moment, a lot of us need a bit of help. It is a tough place to be at the minute anyway. We are experiencing a cost of living crisis. We've been going through this for a while now, and a lot of us are experiencing many costs going up at the same time. And if it was just one cost going up in isolation, that might be manageable. We might be able to manage that. But for most of us, we're juggling lots of different costs going up all at once. Or perhaps, you're going through things at the moment that mean that you're having to make money stretch further. I think about myself, just for a moment, just to prove I'm no different to anybody else. My council tax went up this year, as I think all of ours did. My gas and electric's gone up. My mobile phone contract has absolutely gone up. Food, I mean, only feels like a few months back when I'd go into a supermarket and think, well, that's gone up and that's gone up. Whereas now it seems that everything's gone up. My mortgage has gone up, my travel's gone up. And there's just a few things to get things going. The reality is that there'll be others as well. And so at the moment, there's probably a lot of us that are juggling lots of costs going up at the same time. And this is where we can probably just take a moment just to really check in with ourselves and think, what can I do to improve that situation? Is there anything I can do to help to boost my income or reduce my costs? What might be on the horizon for me? So, what I'm going to do in this session today, the bulk of this session, I'm going to look at top tips just to help with financial well-being. And I mean, we're going to look at 10 top tips. There's lots of others that we could look at if we had all day, but there'll be 10 top tips that we'll really look at just to get things started. And I always say that there's absolutely nothing wrong with just looking at this in a way that suits you. Don't feel that you need to run at all of these things at once. I will talk about a range of things. You don't need to do everything all in one go. Maybe you just want to do one thing at a time, take your time over it, and really master it as a skill, and then move on to the next thing. That's absolutely fine. Because actually, trying to juggle too much at once can often become a little bit overwhelming. Having said all of that, maybe you're a fantastic multitasker. That's not me. I always put my hands up to that. If you're a multitasker and you could do multiple things at once, then great. You go for it. That's the real key. What works for me won't necessarily work for you, and vice versa. So do find that way that you feel comfortable with. And as we explore these top tips, we'll go through each one individually, and some of them will seem more simple than others. There might be some of you think, well, they seem quite obvious, in fact. And isn't that with most things in life? It's often the simplest things that we don't put enough attention to and we don't give enough time to as well. So maybe this is a time to focus on those more simple things and just see what we can do to really help us to build some confidence when it comes to all things money based. And the first one is around really understanding your finances. This is a question I put to people that I speak with all the time. And it's a question I put to myself as well. So I'm no different to anyone else. And the question is, how well do I really know my finances? Have I got a really good grasp on really what's happening with my money? Where is all my money coming from? And what is it going out being spent on? Or is it something that I think I've got an understanding of, but actually it's not really something I've looked at in depth? Because we can all be guilty of that. We can all be, you know, just working through life and thinking, I know where my money's going, but really perhaps we've never put pen to paper. And so this is really an opportunity to look at, what does your household finance look like? What does your day-to-day budget look like? And perhaps this is something you've not done before. Maybe it is something you've done before, but maybe you've not done it for a while. So how about giving it a go this week? Actually looking at your household finances and putting pen to paper, so to speak, and really understanding, where is all my money coming from and where is it all going to? Now, this can be really, really useful because it sounds like a very simple task, but actually putting pen to paper can really help you to understand, okay, what are my priorities in life? What are the things that I need to have, but I might be able to control the level of spending on those areas? And what things can I really get away with not having if I need to? So what things can I cut out if I really needed to? It really helps you to understand what's priority to you. And again, there are some things that are a priority to all of us in life, such as having a roof over our head and paying for our day-to-day kind of household bills. But there are other things that to you, they'll be a priority, and to me, there won't be, and vice versa. So this is all about your individual needs and wants as well. So where to start? Where do you look at starting when it comes to this? Well, I tend to say keep it as basic as it can be, but look at a way that does suit you. Maybe you're somebody who likes to just keep things simple, getting a blank piece of paper out, getting that pen and start making those lists. And making a list to start with of all of those different areas where you have income coming in from. So that can include income from employment, it could be benefits, it could be pension, it could be partner's income, self-employed income, whatever that type of income might be. What does that all look like? And then also really understanding where all of your outgoings are being paid out to as well. And we'll go through that in a bit more detail in just a second. So you could just keep things very simple and just make a list on a blank piece of paper. Again, I will highlight, I know some of this sounds obvious, but it can be very cathartic. It can be quite a nice feeling going through all of this and actually having a bit of a better handle on what your money's doing day to day. So getting back to basics, never a bad thing. What I do sometimes suggest, though, is trying to find some kind of tool or some kind of planner, some budget planner that you could use to help you with this. And I'm going to bring a few up on screen, and they're just examples. Again, we'll make sure these are accessible to you as well. But it's not to say these are the only options. These are just a few examples that we use with people day to day. So the first one that I'm bringing up on the screen here, so this is one of the monthly budget planners that we've put together and we utilize with people. And this is quite nice. It's quite colourful. This can be really good not only for you, but actually really useful if you've got youngsters. So if you've got children and you're wanting to get them to have a better understanding of money and what things are a priority and what things are less of a priority, this can really help you with that. So don't feel that this is just for you. This is for everybody. So this just gives you a really nice budget planner that will just give you some prompts and some tips and hints of about really how to fill this in. So you can see on the top left-hand side, you've got a section for your income. Now, again, you can use this in a way that suits you. You could print this off if you've got the ability to do that, and you could then fill it in with pen, just fill it in more manually, so to speak. Or you could fill this in like I'm doing on here, and I'm just putting some random numbers in here, and you can start to just add this all up and just put it all in as you go along. So you've got your income, but then you've got some sections for outgoings, your costs, and you've got things sectioned for things that I really do need to pay for. That could be rent, mortgage, those kind of day-to-day bills. You've got a section on, well, I need to have those costs, but maybe I can cut back in them. And then you've also got a section for things I can definitely cut back on, for example. And this just really helps you to work through and just see, okay, what's a priority to me? What things, yeah, I like to have, but if I really need to, I could make a difference and reduce those costs. And then as you go along, and just to say, take your time with this. There's no rush. start to fill this in. You can stop and start. You can come back to this. Just gradually get some more confidence with your money. Once you started to fill it in, what you've also got at the bottom is a kind of total section. So you've got a section for your total income, a section for all of your outgoings. So once you've got all those in, add those all up. And then you've got a section that tells you what's left over. So what's the difference between what's coming in and what's going out, what's left over? And we'll come back to that point in a minute. So that's another kind of idea. We've talked about keeping it simple, blank piece of paper, pen. We've got a budget planner like this that you can use. Or then if we bring up another one, so this should be coming up on your screen in just a minute. Sometimes there's a little bit of delay with these coming up on screen, but it's on its way if it's not shown yet. This is another example of a budget planner, but completely different. This is an Excel version, so a spreadsheet option. And again, everybody's different. So some people might like using this and others might like using one of the others that I've shown already. And again, this does exactly the same thing, but again, seems so simple. But what I like about this is that it starts to add the amounts up for you. So you can see at the bottom, you've got £1,000 there already that I've just put in as a random number. I've put in another element of income from child maintenance. I can then start to put some figures in for rent. I've got TV license. Let's just put a random figure in there. I've got some council tax. And you get the idea. You start to fill it in as you go along. And what you can see is that it started to do the job for me. Simple. I'm a big fan of anything that does the hard work for me. So this just starts to add those costs up, all those income levels up that you've got in your income section, and just starts to calculate all that for you. So you can see there with what I've put in, I've got a certain amount of income, £1,100. I've got my outgoings, 563. These are just random numbers, of course. And then you've got amount left over. So you've got that there adding up as you go along. So it just seems simple, but it's just, simple is good in my mind. It just, does some of the work and you can focus on more important things in life. So there's another example for you. We'll make sure you've got access to that. And there's no right or wrong answer with this. If you try, let's say you try this one and you think, I'm just not getting on with it. Fine, don't be put off. Maybe it's just that version doesn't suit you. Pick up one of the other ones and have a go. There's different types of budget planners online that you can have a look at. You can get different apps. The one big thing was, with the apps is just make sure that you're not paying for something you don't need to pay for. These that we're going to send you are free. There are some free types of resources online as well. So just make sure you're not paying unnecessarily for anything like that. But as I say, don't be put off if one way doesn't work for you, try another. I said a moment ago, there's no wrong or right answer with this, and that's absolutely true. There's no wrong or right approach. I would say there's better approaches than others, though. So, for example, these kind of budget planners are often probably better than just having a blank piece of paper and a pen. And the reason for that is just because if you've only got a blank piece of paper and pen, you may forget about some of your income or some of the outgoings that you have. You'll only probably put on there the things that come to mind. Whereas the great thing about these budget planners is they give you some prompts, gives you things to think about. There might be a cost on there and you think, oh, of course I pay for that. I've totally forgotten about that. We're human. It can happen to all of us. So these are very useful just to give you a bit of a structure, a bit of a layout, and just help you with that every step of the way. So there's that other example for you, the spreadsheet version. Now, really with this, it's trying to give you a full picture of where that money's going. So when you're looking at adding those up, you're looking what your total income is and what your total outgoings are, and you're really seeing what that picture is, that's going to tell you one of several things. It might tell you that what you've got coming in is enough to cover all of your costs, and then you've got some money left in your back pocket at the end of the month. You're in a good position. Great. If that's the case, wonderful. There might be some things that you can still do, though, to improve it further still. There might be ways to still boost your income or cut out unnecessary costs to give you more money at the end of the month. Maybe you've looked at your incomings and your outgoings and it's showing that it's about breaking even. So you've got enough to just cover your essentials, but maybe there's no buffer, there's no play money. So again, maybe this is something to look at to see how that can really build in some extra layer of comfort. How can you make your finances more comfortable for you? Or does it show you that what you've got coming in isn't enough to cover all of your outgoings at the moment? So you've got what we call a deficit. So you're in a minus. Again, maybe that's a bit of a bigger indicator for you to do something more dramatic, quicker, and just to take some action now. And we'll talk about what some of those things are. This is just a really useful tool just to know really where am I now and where do I need to be for the future? What can I do to control that and just to help me get my finances into a healthier state? Now, just a few things to think about when you're filling in these budget planners. One of the things I do say is always useful to probably have a copy of your bank statement or your online banking in front of you, because that really helps you to fill in those kind of direct debits and your standing orders, those things that come out maybe every single month. So they're really a good thing to start with. Get all of those into your budget planner. What comes out every month? Maybe you've got things that come out every month and it's the same amount every month, like rent or mortgage, council tax, those kind of things. Maybe you've got a direct debit going out for your water bill, whatever they are, get those onto your budget planner. Then what you need to also think about though are your costs that are more of a maybe quarterly basis or a 6 monthly basis or even an annual kind of cost, because not everything comes out monthly, of course. So for me in December, this is always the time when I've got quite a lot of expense for my car. So I normally have my MOT in December. I'll have my servicing for my vehicle and my road tax. Now, that's quite a lot coming out all at the same time. So what we need to make sure is that we understand what kind of cost is that for the year, what's that likely to be, and then understanding what that would be on a monthly basis. So dividing that by 12 and getting that amount into my budget planner as well, because I might not be paying for that every month, but I certainly need to budget for it so that when I get to December, I haven't got a nasty surprise every year and I've not put money away for it. So this this budget planner that we're helping you with here is really trying to build in all of those kind of costs that I just need to put money away for. What do I need to budget for as well as pay for every month? What kind of things do I need to budget for every month as well? And then also thinking about those kind of incidental costs, or what I call pay-as-you-go costs. So these could be things that you perhaps don't pay for by direct debit, standing order. They might not be every month. You might pay for things daily, and it might be in cash. It might be things that you just pay for as you go in cash, or other ways as well. It could be on a card. I did this session for another group last year, and somebody on the session said, "Would that include me grabbing a coffee on the way into work?" I said, "Absolutely. Tell me a little bit more about that." And she said, "Well, I don't do it every day, but I probably pick up a coffee on the way into work twice a week, and I probably spend about £3.50 a go, and I just pay for it as I go." And I said, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Those kind of costs, they soon add up, and that's the kind of thing you need to put in your budget planner as well. And one of the things that I said to her was, have you ever thought about how much that's costing you a year? And she was very honest. She said, no, I haven't. She said, because I just pay for it as I go. I said, well, you might be interested to know that that's costing £364 a year just for your couple of coffees a week. And you could see she was really churning that over. She was really thinking about it because nobody had really looked at it until then. She hadn't looked at it as a annual cost, as most of us don't. But it's a really useful exercise because you can really see what the cost is. Because if I said £3.50, a go, it doesn't really mean an awful lot. But if I was to say £364 a year, that starts to become a little bit more meaningful. And this isn't necessarily about telling people to cut that cost out. I wasn't telling her this so that, that she had to put that cost out and stop having a coffee. Absolutely not. If it's something you enjoy doing and you can afford to do it, keep doing it. But it's a really useful exercise if you are struggling with money because it's something you can control and cut out if you need to. But more importantly, if you think about what that cost is a year, you can start to think, am I really happy with that? Am I happy I'm spending that amount of money on that? Or would I rather spend that money somewhere else? And when I had chats with that lady, she said, "Do you know what? I could spend that money on a holiday, or I could spend that money towards one of my bills, like my water bill, and I wouldn't be struggling so much." So it just helps you to prioritize. Where would I rather spend that money, or am I happy spending it on what I'm spending currently? So this isn't necessarily about cutting everything out. It's about having that control and that oversight of where your money's going. So that's top tip number one, really knowing your finances. And what's really useful, if you do this as your kind of number one kind of action, that really helps with some of the other things that we're going to look at today as well. So it really feeds into some of the other elements of financial well-being. So what's number two? Well, number two is quite quick and easy. Well, it's easy for me to talk about. It's quite a quick one for me to talk about. But it's incredibly important. And that is about getting the balance right. So this is all about getting that balance right when you start looking at your finances and when you start looking at budgeting. Now, you could go away after we finish tonight and you might think, okay, great. There's a lot for me to take on board there, but I'm going to have a go at some of this. Let me have a look at my budget and let me have a look to see what I could start reducing as costs and cutting things out if I wanted to do that. And that's all great. If you want to do that and you need to do that, wonderful. But don't feel that you need to cut so much out. Don't feel that you need to make such radical choices to cut out so many things that you're paying for that it almost becomes a painful experience, because that becomes really hard work. It becomes a really hard thing to manage. And I always talk about this in the same way as um, being on some kind of extreme diet. You know, you could go on an extreme diet and cut out all of the things that you love to drink and eat, and you'll no doubt get some quick and some quite dramatic results. But is it something you can live with day to day? Is it something you can live with for the long term? Or is it going to get too difficult and it's going to get too painful and it just won't work for a long period of time? So the same thing applies when it comes to financial well-being. There is a key word in that statement, well-being. So let's make sure that we're getting the balance right and we can make it work for us day to day. Number three on the list. This is one I'm quite passionate about, so I will be talking about this one for a little bit longer. And that's just about credit reporting. Now, a lot of people hear the word credit report and they will think about credit score and credit scoring. But actually, credit reporting is a lot more than that. There's a lot more involved, and there's a lot you can get from a credit report that you may or may not be aware of. So some of you will no doubt have some good oversight of this. You'll have some good knowledge. And for others, it may be a newer area. So I'm going to just talk about this. I'm going to go back to basics, and then we'll really explore what a credit report is and how it can benefit all of us. So first of all, what is a credit report? Well, a credit report is a report of your financial health and your financial history. And it really helps others to make a decision of how they're going to work with you really moving into the future. And when I say work with you, that could be many ways. One example, and I'll talk about others later, but one example of that could be, am I going to give you a loan, for example? Am I going to give you a loan? Am I going to give you a certain interest rate? So the credit report is that it's a report of your financial health and financial history. And lots of information is stored on that report. And it just sits there unless you access it yourself and have a look at what's on your own credit report, or you give somebody else access to look at that to make a decision of X, Y, and Z, for example, that they'll give you a loan or whatever else you're looking at. And I'm going to talk about lots of other things, not just about loans here, but what else credit reporting can help you to get. Now, this information, I say, it just sits there unless you access it or you give someone else permission to access it. And it's really important that you do look at your own credit reporting, because it gives you a really good idea of where you are now and where you could be in the future and what steps you need to take to get there. So where does this data sit? Who has it? Well, there are three companies that hold all of this information about us. And these companies are called credit reference agencies. And they hold all of that information about each and every one of us. Now, it's really important to know where to go and how to get this information. So I'm going to talk you through that. And one thing I always recommend is that you access your information on a regular basis. So you access your credit report information on a regular basis, and that you access it from all three of the companies that hold this information. So let's go through both of those. Why access it on a regular basis? Well, things change. Things change over time. Some things can change from one month to another. And so it's important to keep a track of how your credit report looks. So looking at it on a regular basis. Now, if you've never looked at your credit report before, how about doing it this month? And then maybe looking at it again in 6 months' time. And then maybe getting used to looking at it every 3 months. And then maybe starting to get to get in the habit of looking at it every month. I look at my own credit report across all three of the companies, all of the three credit reference agencies. I look at mine every single month. Now, that just means that I'm keeping an update of that all the time. Why every month as well? Your credit report gets updated every month. So if you're looking at every month, you're up to date as you can be with it. Now, the other thing is, why look at all three? Why look at all three credit reference agency data? Well, the reason for that is because each one works slightly differently. One company might hold slightly different information to the other. So if you're only looking at one, you're not necessarily getting the full picture of your financial health. So looking at all three gives you everything you need. So how do we do this? Well, and in fact, press pause on that for a minute. I appreciate that some of you might be sat here thinking, why does this matter? Why should I bother? I'm not looking to borrow. I don't want a loan. I don't want a credit card. Why should I bother with this? And that's a really good question. But actually, we should all be bothered. And the reason for that is it's not just about borrowing. Your credit report is not just about borrowing money. Yes, it can help you to do that and get you the best products when it comes to credit cards and loans and car finance, mortgages, but it's actually so much more than that. It can help people to make a decision of whether they're going to give you that new rental property. So a lot of landlords now use credit report data to decide whether they're going to give you that new rental property and a new tenancy. It can also make a difference on what type of insurances you're able to get, or mobile phone contracts, or TV packages like Sky, internet packages, and the list goes on. So it's not just about borrowing. It helps people to make a decision of lots of different things in life, day-to-day things, day-to-day kind of costs, and day-to-day kind of living. So let's get back to the three credit reference agencies. Who are they? So there are three. Oh, yes, I think we've got a question. I can see
It
a
was just
raised
me.
hand.
It was
Hello.
just me really. Is there anything negative about looking this information up? Anything?
So really good. So I was going to come on to that, but let's do that now.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So
Okay.
the great news is there is absolutely zero negative impact on your credit file from you looking at your own information. I wouldn't look at my credit reference agency data. I wouldn't look at my credit report every month from all three if I knew it was going to have a negative impact. So actually, you, me, whoever it is, we can look at our own information as often as we want. That is there for us to look at. Zero negative impact at all. If we give someone else the ability to look at our credit report, so for example, if I went and applied for a loan and from applying for that loan, I have to give that bank access to look at my credit file. They will do something called a hard search. Now, that does have an impact on my credit file on a temporary level. So for a number of months, that will lower my credit score. And I'm going to come on to credit scoring a bit later on, but that does have a negative impact. It will be for a number of months and then it will start to repair itself. But you looking at your own credit report, you can crack on with that with no problem at all. So please do. I always really urge people to look at their own credit report, because if you're not looking at it, then you don't know what you need to do next. So you can do that without any worry. Great question. So the three credit reference agencies, that hold all of this information about us. The companies are, and we're going to talk about these, and you might immediately forget them. Don't worry. We're going to bring them up on the screen later on. I've got some slides about them later on, and we'll follow up with lots of resources, including this afterwards as well. So the three companies are, first company is called Experian, second one is called Equifax, and the third one's called TransUnion. So these are the three companies that hold that data. Now, you can get a copy of your credit report by sending off an application and getting it through the post. You might get the first one free, but then you'll normally start to pay for it. And you might even need to pay for the first one. It depends how you access it. So you can get it through the post. You can also get it through their websites. But the quickest and the easiest way to do it, and for free, would be to download the free apps that are available to us. So I tend to recommend these because then they're on your phone or whatever you download them on. And I mean, I normally turn all my notifications off. They drive me mad. But one notification I do keep on is my credit reference reports, because it then tells me every month that my updated credit report is available for me to look at. So it's a really good reminder. So it just prompts me to go and look at it. So if you're downloading the apps, there are a couple of different names for the apps. So the first one is called Experian. So you can download their own app. So Experian have their own, it's called Experian. You've then got ClearScore as the second one. And then you've got a third one called Credit Karma. So those are your three apps that you want to be looking at downloading. You download the three apps free of charge. You sign up, and then you get access to your credit report every month free of charge for life. So I have all three of these on my phone and I look at them all the time. It's just something I'm very used to doing now. So what can you see when you've got them downloaded and you're starting to use them? Well, when you log in, one of the first things you will see is what's called your credit score. So I mentioned this briefly earlier. So your credit score. Now, the way I describe a credit score is like your barometer of financial health. So if you imagine like a scale, or you imagine a ladder, and where you're stood on that ladder tells you how far from the top you are, in terms of the top being your best financial health you could have, and the lower than you are on that ladder, the lower your financial health. And it will give you what your personal score number is out of a total that's available. So annoyingly, each one of the apps works slightly different to the next. So for example, if you go onto Experian, they'll give you your personal score out of a total number available, which is 999. So they'll give you your score out of 999, 999 being the best A grade credit score you could possibly have. If you use ClearScore and look at that today, you'll get your personal number out of a total of 1,000. So they work slightly different, and Credit Karma works slightly differently again. So they do work differently to each other, but that doesn't really matter. The principle is the same. The higher the number, the stronger your financial health is. The higher the number, the more likely they'll say yes if you do need to borrow credit. The more likely they'll give you a mortgage if you look for one. The more likely they'll give you that tenancy agreement if you are needing to apply for a new rental property. Or the more likely they'll give you insurance products or that mobile phone contract. And the list goes on. Not only that, but if you're looking to borrow money, the higher your number, the higher your score, the more likely you'll get a better interest rate as well. So one of the things that I really like about these apps, one, when you log in, they'll tell you what your number is out of a total that you could get to. And then what they'll also do is tell you what you need to look at doing to improve your credit score, if that's indeed something you need to do. So it gives you personalized tips and hints around these are the areas to focus on if you want to start increasing and improving your credit score number. But also, they'll tell you what you're doing well in, because you could log onto your credit score today. I remember doing this session for another group a few months ago. And after I did the session, somebody who'd been on it contacted me and she said, I've logged on to my credit score and it's the top number it could be. Great. The next thing is though, how do you keep it at that top number? Because if you're at that high number, you want to keep it there. So these credit score apps, credit report apps, tell you what you're doing well in. And it will say, you're doing really well in this area, keep it up. So they don't just tell you what you need to improve, but also if you are doing really well, how to keep it in that good shape. So really, really useful. There are some things that will impact each and every one of us. So these apps are very good at giving us these personal recommendations, but there are some kind of generic things to be mindful of when you're looking at your credit score. So for example, if you're not registered to vote, that will have a negative impact on your credit file, on your credit score. Being registered to vote immediately gives you around 50 points on that credit score number. So you gain 50 points from being registered to vote. So there's one thing, and that will affect all of us. So that's the same for any of us. You can get 50 points if you've not had a recent application of credit in the last 6 months. So if you've had a gap of at least 6 months in between applying for a credit card or a loan, for example, that will give you another 50 points. So it's these little things that can just really help you as you go along. Another thing that can often help you is staying within what's called credit utilization. Now, let's imagine that you have a credit card and you've got a credit limit on that credit card of £1,000 and you're at the max of that credit card limit. So you've got £1,000 on that credit card and you're paying minimum payments. So you are paying every month, but you're just making the minimum payment to that just to keep things ticking along. That unfortunately will have a negative impact on your credit score. And the reason for that is because for anybody looking at that from the outside world in, it's actually saying to them, I'm maxed out to the top level I can borrow on that card. I've used all that's available and I'm only making minimum payments. So it's going to take me a long time to pay that off. So that doesn't look very good from a financial health point of view. The trick with this is to only use a certain amount of that credit limit that you have available to you. And the magic number is normally 25%. And so this is called credit utilization. You're only utilizing a certain percentage of the credit limit you've got available to you. So let's imagine you've got that credit card, you have £1,000 credit limit on it. The trick would be to stay within 25% of what you've got available to you and not to go over that. And what that does instead is that, first of all, it sends out a more positive message to anyone that's looking at your credit file. It says, yes, I've got a credit limit, but I'm only using some of it, not all of it. I'm only using up to 25% of it. So I'm less of a financial risk. And it's not going to take me as long to pay that back off. What that does is that boosts your credit score by 90 points. So there's another quick win. So if you can get used to only utilizing a certain percentage of your credit limit, then that boosts your credit score. And it's these little things that all just add up over time. A little bit here, a little bit there. It won't necessarily, if you need to improve your credit score, it won't necessarily be something that's overnight. You might have to work at it over a number of months. But once you've done it and you've done all that hard work, then start to focus on how do I keep it looking good? How do I keep it in that positive way? Now, I did say credit reporting's for a lot of things. It's not just about borrowing money. It can be about day-to-day spending, insurances, etc., etc. But let's just talk about borrowing for a moment. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and borrow, and I'm not saying it's something you necessarily need to do today, of course. But in our lives, there might be a situation where we do need to borrow. And I'll give you a personal scenario. So, and the reason why I'm talking to you about this is just about how to get the best products and make the best decisions. So I needed to get a new car a couple of years ago. And I looked at the options. I looked at hire purchase. I looked at PCP. What I decided to do, though, was just to go for a bog standard bank loan and then to use that money to buy the car outright and then to pay the loan back. Now, when it came to looking to borrow that money to look at getting that loan, I had a couple of different options in terms of the way that I could do that. One option would be I could have gone online and I could have just gone on any bank's website and put in my details and apply for the loan. And then I could do this and cross my fingers. Cross my fingers in several ways. Hope that they say yes to giving me the loan. Hope that they give me the amount of money I need so I can get the car that I really want. And also hope they give me a good interest rate so I'm not paying over the odds for that loan. That's quite a lot of hope that's going on. I'm doing a lot of finger crossing there. And the reason for that, finger crossing and hope, is that if I go to a bank and I apply for the loan in that way, once I've pressed apply, the bank has to do a check on my credit file, my credit report. And I've talked about this a moment ago. Every time that they do that, that will put a mark on my credit file, and that will temporarily knock a certain number of points off my credit file. And it does that, it will make that impact for a number of months. Normally, it's between 12 to 18 months that it will impact my credit file for. Let's imagine I go to Bank A and I put my application in for the loan, and they say, sorry, no, thank you. We don't want to give you the money. You're not for us. So I haven't got my loan. So I've been knocked back. The answer's no. So I think, okay, I'll go to this other bank and try with them. I do the same thing. They say no. That's damaged my credit file a second time. So it's dropped my credit score number again. I still need the car. So I go to a third bank and I apply to them. They say yes. Great. They give me the loan. I get the amount I need. Okay, I can get the car. But even though they've said yes, they've also had to do a search on my credit file, and that has also done some damage to my credit score. So that's knocked points off again. So to get that one loan in that example, I've damaged my credit score 3 times in that one kind of process. So that's something we want to avoid. That's not the best way to do it. This is where your other option comes in, and you can use things like your credit report to help you with that, these credit report apps. So what did I do? Well, what I did was I went on credit report apps. The one I used for this was ClearScore. Others are available, but I'm just giving you the example of the one I used. So I went on to ClearScore and I went through the section that says, do I need to borrow? So there are sections on the app. So you can click onto the bit that's about borrowing. And it said, what are you looking for? So I could say, I'm looking for a loan. This is the amount I'm looking for. What's the purpose of the loan? So it was for a car, but it could have been for home improvements. It could have been for X, Y, and Z. I went on there, I'm looking for this for a car. What it then does is it will then ask me for some additional information, but it doesn't need to ask me a lot because it actually knows a lot about me already, if you think about it, because it's holding all of this financial information on that credit report. So it's holding a lot about me already, but it just wants some up-to-date information. So I had to say, for example, they said, can you verify that your income is still at this level? Yes. Do you have any dependents? No. What's your current status in terms of your mortgage? How much you're paying to that per month? There's a couple of questions, about 3 questions I had to answer. Press enter. And then what happens is it then gives you a list of all of the different companies that you could go to and request a loan. So it gives me a whole list of those, which is very useful. But what's even more useful is they give you a percentage of chance. What's the percentage of chance of them saying yes if I go to this bank compared to this bank? So for example, at the top, it might say, if you go to this bank, they're 95% likely to say yes to you because they like what you're all about. They're the kind of customer you're looking for, they're looking for. And then it will start to reduce down and say, these are 90% likely to say yes. These are 80, these are 70, these are 50. And then it starts to go down to the ones at the lower end. These are only 20% likely to say yes to you. The good thing about this is that I can stay clear of going to those companies that are lower percentage of chance. Why risk it? I can go straight to the ones that are higher success, higher chance of them saying yes to me, so that I get the decision first time I apply. Sometimes, depending on your credit status, there may also be what's called pre-approved offers. So with some of them, they'll say, if you go to this company, they're 100% likely to say yes to you if you apply to them. So that means you can go to them and it's guaranteed to give you what you're looking for. What this does is it means you can go to them, you can apply, you get the yes first time round, and that means you do the least damage on your credit file that you can make. That's why I'm talking about these, because again, this might not be something you need now, but down the line, this is something to just remember. How do I make the right decision and get the best kind of financial product I'm looking for at the cheapest cost? Because the other thing they'll do is they'll also tell you how much they're willing to lend you. So you could see one and it might says, well, they'll say yes to me if I apply, but they'll only give me half the amount I need for the car. Well, that's no good to me. I don't need half a car. I need a whole car, so I can stay away from those. But they'll also tell me what the interest rate is they're going to charge me as well. So all of these things add up. Just means you can be very safe, you can be clever about it, and you can just keep your credit file and your credit score number as good as it can be. You can tell I'm quite passionate about credit reporting. So one last thing that I'm going to talk about, and we'll move on to something else. And what I'm just going to talk about for a moment is on a lot of the apps that are available to you, they will also have lots of information about how to stay safe online. We're online all the time these days, most of us, whether that's on laptops, iPads, tablets of other kinds, mobile phones. We're logging into lots of things. We're using lots of usernames. We're using passwords a lot. And sometimes, without us even knowing it, our usernames, our passwords get breached and they get used by the wrong people out there, and we don't even know it. What some of the credit report apps do is they will give you hints and tips about how to stay safe online, but they can also give you your own personal recommendations of where you need to improve your online safety. So, for example, again, ClearScore, they have a section on there that's called Protect, and you can go on there and they'll give you, they'll tell you whether your passwords or usernames have been leaked online on the dark web. They'll tell you whether you need to look at strengthening your passwords because they're not safe enough. And they can even give you a score, a separate score of your online safety. So really, really handy. So this just starts to show you your credit report apps and credit report information. It's so much more than just a credit score number. It's telling you how to make the good decisions now, how to make good decisions for the future, how to improve your score, how to keep it, if it's looking good, how to keep it at that level, how to stay safe online. Lots and lots of things you can get from your credit report apps. So give them a go, and I'm sure you won't regret it. Let's move on to something else. One of the things that's really important when you're looking at your budget is you may come across costs that can change from year to year and go up. And one of those could be insurances. Now, lots of us have different insurances. If I think about myself, I have my car insurance, I have my pet insurance, I have my home insurance, and I have my life insurance. There's just four. And of course, each year I'll have my new insurance, let's say for my car. And for the next year ahead, I'll be paying, normally for me, it'd be monthly that I'm paying for that. And at the end of that year, they will come back to me, the insurance provider, and they'll say, if you want to stay with us, this is how much it will cost you for the next year ahead. I know you'll know this. I'm not talking about something you don't know. This is really just a reminder to not forget to shop around, to make sure that you're getting the best insurance product, to make sure you're not being ripped off, to make sure you're saving as much money as possible. Because most of us will have what's called an auto renewal policy. So we might take out a car insurance and we get protection for that car insurance for the next year. And at the end of that year, they'll send us a letter. And it will normally say, this is how much it's going to cost you for the next year ahead. If you want to stay with us, do nothing. We'll just charge you that new amount over that next year. If you want to cancel, then you need to tell us and we'll cancel it. You can bet your bottom dollar that if you stay with them, normally year by year, it will go up. the cost will start creeping up every year. So it's just really important to make sure that you're shopping around to get the best products and to get the best deals and get the cheaper amount available to you. Sometimes it can be as simple as ringing up your current provider and saying, that's too much. Is there a better deal you can give me? Sometimes threatening to leave them as a customer can do the trick. You know, sometimes they'll do what they can to keep you and might give you a better insurance amount. But what can really, really help is just keeping it simple and shopping around and using what's called a comparison website to do this. So a lot of you will be using these. So I know that I'm not saying anything that's probably necessarily groundbreaking to all of you, but the trick with this is just remembering to do it because we're all human beings. It can really slip off the radar. We're busy. We've got busy lives, most of us. We've got busy, environments at home, workplace, children, whatever else going on. It can be a busy time. And I'm human as well. I can easily forget. I purposely have a reminder that comes up on my phone a month before my insurances are due to renew, and it prompts me to say, you need to go and shop around to see if you can get a cheaper deal. So using things like comparison websites can really help to simplify this. So lots of you will probably know about these. For anybody that isn't aware of what these are websites where you can compare a variety of different insurance products against each other. So it really can help you to see if you can get a cheaper product somewhere else, or maybe it's not about getting a cheaper product, maybe you can get a better product. Might cost you the same amount, but you can get a better product elsewhere. So a few of the websites, just to name a couple, again, we'll share these with you afterwards, but these are the likes of comparethemarket.com, Money Supermarket, Go Compare, lots of them out there. And what you simply do is go onto one of them, you select what kind of insurance you're looking for. So maybe it's car insurance, for example. It will ask you information about yourself, your kind of driving history. Have you got any insurance claims that you've had in the past? Have you got any convictions for speeding? All of these types of things. And then also information about your car, of course. And then what it will do is it will then give you a list of all of the different insurance providers that they can show you and what the pricing would be for each of those. And it's just a really quick way of thinking, okay, well, that's going to save me some money if I switch to them, or if I stay where I am, what's that going to mean for me? One thing to be aware is that the comparison websites give you lots and lots of different companies, but they don't give you 100% of the companies out there. For example, it won't show you Direct Line. Direct Line never appear on comparison websites. So you do need to just do a couple of checks on companies that aren't on those websites just to cover everybody. Is it worth doing? Without doubt, it's worth doing because even if you look at one, you think, okay, that's going to save me £10 a month. Well, that's £10 a month in my pocket. But the difference as well is, well, if I've got car insurance and I've got home insurance and I've got pet insurance and I've got life insurance, and if that was £10 difference per month on all of them, that's £40 a month. It's what it is combined. That can be where the difference comes in. I'll give you a couple of examples. I had my car insurance. I've been with Direct Line actually for a long time. Theirs started to creep up and enough was enough. I decided to shop around and I moved, and that saved me, a bit of money every month. But the big one for me this year was home insurance for my buildings and contents. I was with LV as an insurance provider. My renewal came through in January, and they said they were going to charge me, well, it was going from £54 a month. My new insurance for the year ahead was going to be £92 a month. I hadn't made any claims on it, nothing at all, but it was going to that level, 54 to 92. And I thought, there's no way I'm doing that. So I got on the comparison website, shopped around, and I was able to switch to Nationwide. Yes, it's gone up a bit. It's gone to about 60, I think it's about £61 a month. So it has gone up, but it's nowhere near the 90 odd pounds that they were going to charge me if I stayed where I was. So it's just really important to be ahead of the game, be on it with those. And then the other thing it mentions here is subscriptions. So a lot of us probably took out subscriptions during the pandemic, which seems a long time ago now, but it was something that we often were taking out to entertain ourselves because there was nothing to do. We were locked in the house. So whether it might have been TV subscriptions, music, so it could be Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, music, it could have been food and drink, arts and crafts, whatever they were. But a lot of us started to take multiple subscriptions out. So this is just a good time, especially when you're going through your budget. Tip number one, just to step back and think, what am I spending on? What kind of things am I paying for when it comes to subscriptions? Have they got a little bit out of control? Have they built up? Have I got multiple subscriptions? And just ask the question, do I still need them? Do I still want them? And want and needs are different things, of course, but it's a useful thing to just ask. And then also, it might not be about cancelling them altogether. It might be about just reducing them. It might be, okay, I was getting these every month. What I could do is reduce them to a lower level. So I could go to a quarterly subscription instead of a monthly subscription. So have a look at that as well. Sometimes that can make the difference. And yes, I can see on the chat, be careful of the free intros. Remember to unsubscribe. Yeah, there's a lot of these companies that lure you in, have it at half the price for the first 3 months or have it free for the first 3 months, whatever it is. And then they've got you because then it starts to just kick in after 3 months and you're paying for it. So just be aware of that. Yeah, they love to give you a couple of months free because they know a lot of people forget to cancel. Next thing on the list is just a reminder if anybody has what we call a 0% interest credit card. So this is sometimes referred to as what's called a promotional rate credit card. And the idea of this is that you could get a credit card with 0% interest for a fixed period of time. So sometimes that could be 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. So some of them can be quite a lengthy period. And what it means is anything you buy on that credit card over that period of time will be interest free. And that could be useful, but the risk is if you get to the end of that promotional rate, let's imagine you've got a 12 months interest free credit card, you get to the end of that 12 months and you've still got a balance on that credit card, then the interest starts to kick in. You start to pay interest, so your payments will go up, and also then it will take you a lot longer to pay that balance back. So you just need to be mindful of that. It's just a good one to have in your mind, thinking, when does that 0% interest rate end? And if I've got a balance on there, what am I going to do about it? One option that may be available to you could be to do what's called a balance transfer. And some of you may have done this before. So this is where you can transfer the balance off that credit card that's about to start charging you interest onto another 0% interest credit card. So you transfer it from one to another, and then that credit card gives you 0% for another period of months. So that can be one way to control that. So you're not then paying interest month by month by month again. Ultimately, you want to think about, well, how can I clear that credit card? That's the most important thing. But if you do that balance transfer, that might give you more time to do it because you're not paying interest. You're getting that reduced zero rate of interest for a period of time. One little thing just to flag is that you'll normally have an admin charge for doing that. So there will normally be a charge, there'll normally be a percentage of the balance that you're transferring. So that can range from 1% to 4% of the balance. So it will charge you that as an admin charge for doing that transfer. So there will be a cost normally to doing it, but ultimately it will cost you less than keeping the credit card you're currently with and that interest that you'll be paying on it. So it will be a cheaper way of doing it, but just be aware there will be an admin charge to do that. So those are your first 5 kind of tips. Next one on the list is what we all do, in different ways, but shopping. Whether it's day-to-day shopping at the supermarket, whether it's shopping online, shopping is something we just have to do. And sometimes it's just about how can I do it in the best way? How can I be a savvy shopper? And some of these kind of thoughts are simple. Others are just little good hacks to be aware of. So what can be the simple ones? I mean, some of the simple things that I talk about are things that my mum used to talk about when I was younger. You know, and there were probably the things back then when I was younger when I just rolled my eyes at her and thought, whatever, mum. But she was right. So, for example, never go shopping without a supermarket list. So have your shopping list ready, because you'll end up buying things you'll think, oh, I can't remember what I was meant to pick up, and grab the wrong things. Second thing she told me, and yes, she was right, never go shopping when you're hungry, because you'll grab things because you're thinking I'm starving, and you'll make the wrong choices and buy things on impulse. But other things certainly that help me, and again, this is everyone's different, but things that help me, understanding how a supermarket works. Sounds a bit weird, but how does it work on a basis? How does it try and draw you in? How does it get you to buy things? Um, well, sometimes it's about those things that you see when you very first walk in. You know, and a lot of supermarkets, you walk in and they've got the kind of deals of the day. They've got things in baskets or on podiums, and it's saying, get this flat screen TV. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's almost like a threat. You've got to get it now. But are they really the deals of the day? Are they the things that you came in wanting and needing, or was it something that's going to catch you out? So be aware of that. There's a reason why they put those when you very first walk in. Um, there's a reason why when you walk into somewhere like Lidl, it immediately smells amazing, because the first thing you come in contact with is the baked goods area, the bakery. And you might think, oh, I need that pizza slice. I need that donut. I wasn't planning on buying it, but I've got to have it. They do that very intentionally. But also just the layout of supermarkets, you know, they get you to walk in a certain way so that you're trying to go down every aisle. You've got, you know, certain things that they'll put on eye level. So you see them and then you buy them. And sometimes they're the more expensive items rather than the cheaper items that might be more at the top or the bottom. Are the things at the end of the aisles that, again, are things like the multi-packs, are they the cheapest way to buy it? You know, is those 20 pack of Kit Kats the cheaper way to do it? Or would it be cheaper to get 2 packs of 10? And sometimes it's that way. A good way of looking is when you're looking at the pricing ticket that's on the aisle, they will then normally tell you what the price is per gram or per kilogram, and you can compare it. Well, actually, that looks like it's cheaper, but it's not. It's cheaper to get 2 packs of 10 because that's less money per gram. So sometimes it's just about looking at that and being savvy about the way that they're luring you in. I was reading something only at the weekend that was talking about IKEA, and it described IKEA as something like the best psychological shopping masterpiece ever created, because the way that they lay everything out just makes you want to buy it. Or, you know, they're saying this is what your home could look like. It's just, you know, they're very clever at doing it. And when you walk around, you see the same item in multiple ways, in different ways that they're showing that you could use it. So it's just thinking about that. What about shopping online though? Lots of things that can help you with this. I mean, we buy lots of things online, don't we? Whether it's, you know, day-to-day living, whether it's Christmas, birthdays, whether it's just, you know, whatever it might be for, whether it's to buy essentials like a washing machine, tumble dryer that breaks down. There are some really good websites that can help you to make sure that you're getting the cheapest option available. So one website that I really recommend is Price Spy. There's another one called Price Runner. I, in fact, used Price Runner only yesterday. And they're really useful because you might be looking at, let's say you were looking at a new washing machine at Curry's, but is Curry's the cheapest place to get it? Or does it look like Curry's are giving you a good deal, but 3 months ago it was even cheaper at Curry's and they've increased the price, and actually it's a bit of a rip-off at the moment. Those websites are very good to say, this is actually where you could get it cheaper. Or, you know, it might be worth holding out because you're thinking, well, it's bound to go on sale again because I can see it did that this same time last year. So very, very useful to actually see whether what you're getting is the cheapest way to get it. So just think of that as well. And then thinking about another website, which is called, you won't forget this one, it's a bit quirky, Camel, Camel, Camel. I said it was quirky. Camel, Camel, Camel is actually for Amazon. So it's not an Amazon website, but it's based on Amazon purchasing. And you can actually go on there and again, look at, you know, is there a cheaper way to get it on Amazon? Because sometimes if you go to, you know, you can buy the same item off lots of different sellers, can't you, on Amazon? So helps you to find out whether the product you're looking at is cheaper with that company you're trying to buy it through, or is it cheaper somewhere else? But the other thing I really like about it is you can set what's called a price alert. So let's imagine you found that lovely new flat screen TV. Let's use that as an example. But you're thinking it's still a bit too much money, a bit too pricey, not willing to pay that. You can set a price alert, so it will alert you when it falls into a price amount that you're happy to pay for. And therefore, you're not having to keep looking. It's telling you. So again, it just helps you to be savvy when you're buying online. Um, of course, there are some really great websites to buy other things, or great areas like Facebook Marketplace, Vinted. I mean, one of my good friends is an absolute master with Vinted, both selling and buying, and just being able to buy outfits that are still tagged. They might have been, bought by someone, they've never worn it, they're selling it 6 months later, and you're getting a brilliant new outfit. I mean, she goes and finds all of the Zara outfits, and saves a fortune. So those kind of websites can be really good, or those apps. One app that I really like that's not about shopping in that way in terms of clothes and bits and pieces like that, but an app that's called Too Good to Go. Some of you may have seen this. I love Too Good to Go. Too Good to Go. It's an app you can download. So you download the app for free, and then you put your postcode in. And what it will do is it will tell you in your area who is selling off food now, because it's good to be eaten and good to be purchased now. But if it's not picked up in the next number of hours, it's going to go in the bin. So it's too good to go in the bin, but you need to come and get it quickly. So sometimes that's because it's got a short shelf life on it. Other times it might be because it's fresh or it's hot and it needs to be bought now. So when I go on and put my postcode in, for example, I see Morrison's, Costa, Greggs, Starbucks, Harvester. And what you can do is it will often say, well, if you come and get this bag of food from Morrison's, for example, it will be worth up to this amount, but you pay this. Costa and Starbucks, they often do what they call their kind of surprise bag. So sometimes you can get, if it might be £3, but you're going to get £12 worth of food and drink. And it might be sandwiches, cakes, drinks. So it is a bit of a gamble because it's a bit of, you don't know quite what you're going to get, but you know it's going to be something from Costa or Starbucks. You know kind of what you're going to get. But you're getting a bargain because they know they're going to put it in the bin that night, but you could pick it up and have something, quick and cheap to eat. I've used it for going to get a hot breakfast or a carvery meal for a couple of pounds. Because again, it's hot and they're saying if you come and get it in the next hour, you can have it, and it's only going to cost you a couple of pounds instead of what we'd normally charge you. So there's some really cheap food you can get on there. Someone I know uses it to go and get food when they're about to get a train from King's Cross and they're thinking they're commuting, and they think, what can I go and grab now that I can eat that's going to cost me a fraction of what it should be charging me, and I can eat it on the way home on my commute. So I haven't got to cook when I get home, and I'm getting it for cheap and it's fresh. So, just these little things that can all add up. I could go on, I like shopping, so I could go on for a long time about that, but we need to move on. And what we're going to move on to is just thinking about some of the signs to look out for when maybe our financials, but our financial well-being isn't quite in the right place. This might not be about you necessarily. As I said earlier, you could be here to come and get some tips for somebody else, and that's wonderful. Maybe you've got some concerns that somebody's struggling, and you're starting to pick up on some of the signs, some of the indicators, just things to look out for. For example, if you or you're seeing someone else using credit to pay for everyday living, and without it, you just wouldn't get by. So a couple of examples might be you're having to use a credit card to put fuel in the car, or you're having to use a credit card to pay for your day-to-day shopping. And without that, you just wouldn't be able to get those things. That could be one of those signs to look out for. That could be an indicator that your financial well-being's not quite where it should be. Maybe you're using for credit to pay for other forms of credit. So you're kind of balancing one to another just to keep things going. Maybe you had some savings, but you've used all the savings up. I mean, a lot of us aren't, in a place where we've got savings at the moment, but if you were, maybe they've gone, and maybe that's another indicator. Or maybe it's more about kind of health. Maybe it's about sleepless nights. Maybe you're stressed, more stressed about money, more anxious, or maybe you're not sleeping well. Or maybe this one. Maybe you've stopped avoiding opening your mail. Maybe you've stopped opening the letters from the banks and you just don't want to see what it's telling you. These can be very clear indicators that maybe we need to look at some of the things that we've talked about today. Maybe that's the reason, I'm a bit more stressed about finances. Okay, let's look at your budget. Let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at what we can do to, get your credit report under control. Let's have a look to see what kind of subscriptions we could cut down if we need to, or savvy shopping, only those things. Or if you're struggling with debts, if you've got credit cards, loans, store cards, overdrafts, you're struggling with those, again, maybe that's where you need to reach out for some free and confidential debt advice. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a few moments, because that's exactly what we do here at PayPlan. We do offer that type of support for someone that needs debt support. I've talked about costs quite a bit, but what about boosting our income? And again, some of this might be, an idea to look at now, others it might be down the line. But things to keep in mind. First thing I always recommend a household to do is to look at doing a free benefit check. Now, free benefit checks, really, really easy to do. Gov.uk have one on their website, so the government website. We have one at PayPlan that we offer to anybody that wants to use it. It's completely free. I'm going to put the link into the chat towards the end of the session as well. And what it allows you to do is go on the link. You can then just create a login. And then in as little as 10 minutes, you can do a check on your household to see if there's any benefits that you are entitled to that you're not currently getting. Why is it worth doing that? Well, first of all, it's only 10 minutes, so it's very little time that you have to invest to look at that. But if I was to tell you that last year, 23 billion pounds worth of benefits went unclaimed in the UK, and that was across 8 million households. So 23 billion pounds worth of benefits, 8 million households missed out on benefits that you should have been getting, but weren't. That's the reality of what happens every single year. So that's why it's worth checking, because it could unlock a pot of money that you could get, and just to help things, to keep going. We know, because we can see, the kind of results that people get. We know some people that have done this, spent 10 minutes, and they've suddenly been getting hundreds of pounds more per month from doing that simple check. Why do people miss out on benefits? Well, often it's because people assume they're not entitled to them. The amount of people we speak to say, well, I've not checked my benefit entitlement because I know I can't get any. I'm working full time. That might not be the case. There's a lot of people that work full time that can still get benefits. Or people say, I'm not entitled to benefits because I'm fit and healthy, or I don't have children. And what I would say is, don't let that assumption lead you to missing out. It's well worth spending the time just to have a look at it. And it's as simple as just going onto the website, setting up an account, and then it'll just ask you some details about your current circumstances. And then it will tell you if there is a benefit that you're entitled to, or benefits that you're entitled to, how you can claim those, what those benefits are, how much it looks like you're missing out on. Even if it tells you that, what you're currently getting as benefits, because you might already be getting benefits, might say what you're getting is correct, you're not entitled to any more, or you're not entitled to benefits. At least you're not missing out. The other thing is, some people say, oh, I haven't checked because I'm already getting benefits, so surely I'm getting everything that I'm entitled for. You may not be. The government is very good at not telling you about the different pots of money that you could be getting. So just make sure that you do kind of a check to cover all bases. So we'll send you the link in a few moments so you know how to do that. Other things you could do, there is a really good government scheme called the Rent a Room scheme. Now, this won't be available to everybody because it's only available to those who own their own property. So it doesn't work if you're renting. But what this scheme does is it allows you to rent an empty room in your property to somebody else. Now, this won't be for everybody either, because not everybody will want someone living in their home. I totally appreciate that. But for some, it might be the way to earn some extra money, but also it can be company for some people that want it. And this rent a room scheme is a ring fence scheme that allows you to earn money from doing that, renting a room out. It doesn't make you a landlord or landlady. So it's not the same as a tenancy, because you're only renting out a single space. You're only renting out that single room. And you can actually do this. You can earn any amount of money through rent a room scheme, but there is a magic number, and that is the £7,500 rule. So you can actually rent a room out and earn up to £7,500 a year tax free. And it's very simple to do. I did this a couple of years ago, and I only did it for 6 months. And we had someone that came and stayed with us and earned some. We earned some extra money from doing that. But it can be a really good one. And Judy, I'm really glad you've done that. So you said about rent your drive out for parking. So this is called the rent a space scheme. So you've got rent a room scheme, you've got rent a space scheme. So a lot of the time, if you're driving around near kind of an arena, or where they put on music or whatever, quite often when you drive into cities, you'll see the driveway on a property that's up for rent, and they'll say rent this space for an amount of money. That's often through the kind of rent a space scheme. So lots of different ways that you can just make use of an unused space in your property or on your drive, as Judy said. So there's another idea. Another thing to consider is just make sure that you're getting the most out of purchases that you're making. So I absolutely love cashback. So cashback apps, getting cashback on cards I use, on my bank account. I look out for cashback options wherever I can. And an example of this could be one of the cashback apps that you can download for free. So there are a couple that I'll talk about. There's others out there, but two that are very well known are Quidco and Top Cashback. And the idea is, if I'm going to buy something online, so let's say I'm going to go and buy something from Argos or from Currys, or I'm going to book a train on Trainline, or I'm booking a hotel through hotels.com. Instead of going to those websites directly to buy those things or book those things, if I go through one of the apps, so I go through Quidco, for example, I can go onto Quidco, I can type in hotels.com, it brings it up. It'll then tell me what cashback I can earn from using that app. I can click on that. It'll then take me to the website that I would have gone to, so hotels.com, but it tracks that I've done that. And what it will do is it will track if I make a purchase and then give me a percentage back into my app, and it'll build that up in a pot. Now, sometimes the cashback can be 1%, often through something like hotels.com, because I did this the other week, it was 10% cashback. So if you booked a hotel room at £100, you could get 10% of that back in your Quidco pot. And this just builds up over time, because it might not be something you do every day, booking a hotel or booking a train, but other things we might do more so. So it might be getting, Christmas presents or birthday presents or whatever it might be that we're booking. It's certainly worth doing. It can add up, to quite a sizable amount. I've been using Quidco for a few years now, but I know I've had over £1,000 cash back, and that was just extra money that I've earned from buying the same things that I would have bought anyway, but I can get through that cashback website or app. I'm also very helpful to people, with my mum and dad. Oh, you're looking to book that. Why don't I book it for you? You send me the money, I'll book it for you. Easy for them, bit of cashback for me. So everybody wins. So just things like that can add up over time. So think about cashback, really, really handy. And also look for your freebies, especially on bank accounts. Often there are things that you could get for free with your bank account provider. An example for me, I bank with Barclays, is one of the accounts that I have. And last year they contacted me through the app, and they said Apple TV for free. Now, ordinarily, I'm mindful of those kind of deals because they can catch you out. They can say, yeah, come and have 3 months. And then suddenly, we talked about this earlier, then they start charging you. But the difference with this was that they were going to give you, or give me, Apple TV with no expiry. It was just as part of the account, you can have Apple TV for free and it's ongoing with zero cost. Yes, please, because I was already paying for Apple TV anyway. So I cancelled that subscription. Barclays now give me it for free, and I've had that since last year. So just those little things, keep an eye out for them because they can soon add up and give you your money, give you those freebies, give you that money back. And then with all of this, we've talked about different things to help you budget well and to manage your money. And these are just a few examples. There are lots of other things we could talk about today, if only we had all the time in the world. But we're always talking about managing our money. Finding a way that works for you and what works individually for you and your household is really important. And one thing that can really make the difference is having the right bank account. Is it a bank account that really helps you to manage your money well? Does it work for you? Is it your bank account that you've had since you were a youngster and you've just stuck with them because it's just who you've been with? Are they good enough for you? Are they giving you a good enough account? There are some really, really fantastic banking accounts out there, bank apps, different banks that give you different kind of products. I said earlier that I bank with Barclays, but I also have an account with Monzo. And a lot of you will probably have these types of accounts. They're called challenger banks. So these are the likes of Monzo, Starling, Revolut, Chase. So there's a few of these that are popping up these days and have been around for a few years. But these are actually, in some ways, some of these new accounts that are available to us for free are often better than the high street banks that we've been used to for many, many years. I use Monzo because it really helps me to budget well. So I have a Monzo account, I get some money paid into there, but then what I do is I have what's called their pots. And some of you will be well and truly used to this. So on Monzo, and the others did the same thing, I can set up individual pots, which are like mini accounts. And I have one that's called my car, and you can call it your car. You can even put a picture on there of your car if you want to get, really personal with it. I have one for my groceries, my shopping. I have one for utility bills. And what it means, I can pull money into those pots every month, and it's just there ready for me to spend that money when I need it. I'm not going to go spending that money on other things and then get caught out that I haven't got that money put to one side. So it really helps me to budget well. These kind of accounts are really good at keeping a track on your spending day to day anyway. So if you get used to these type of accounts on a day to day basis, at the end of the month, they'll tell you what your spending habits look like. So they're very good at saying it looks like you're spending a little bit more on, supermarket shopping than you did last month. So they can really help you to know if you're spending more or spending less. They're good for things like cash back. So they give you cash back on different purchases. On my Monzo account, I can actually look at my Monzo account and it will tell me what my credit score is. It will tell me what my current mortgage balance is, even though my mortgage isn't with Monzo. It uses what's called open banking to let me know that. And what it just means is that I get a lot of my financial health in one area. It really helps me to manage that well. The other thing I really like about Monzo is if you're ever going abroad, you can use your Monzo account for free. It doesn't give you, if you're going to buy something on your card, if you go to a restaurant, you don't get caught out on loads of transaction fees for spending abroad. And you can withdraw money from the cash point a certain amount every month as well without getting charged for it. So there's a lot of different things and features that can really help you with that. So getting the right bank account, just assess it. Just have a look at who you're with and think, is that everything I could get? Is that the best I could get? Or have I just been with them for 20 years and it's just who I'm used to? So just thinking about that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this particular item, which is called financial resilience, really because this is all about having a kind of a buffer, having a kind of a backup pot of money if things get difficult. Right now, I am very aware, just like for me, a lot of our costs have gone up. It's hard enough trying to keep things going on a day-to-day basis. But as we saw from one of the first kind of slides that I showed you, a lot of us don't have any kind of buffer. We don't necessarily have any kind of pot of money to fall back on if things get difficult. So right now, it's probably difficult to even think about this, having, putting money aside, putting a savings pot to one side. But when things get easier, and things will get easier over time. You know, things like the cost of living crisis won't be here forever. If this is a habit you can get into, just putting a little bit of money away, even if it's just a very, very small amount, can really create a good habit to get into. And it's just about how can I have a bit of a pot of money to fall back on if things get difficult in the future. So this might not be something that's, you know, achievable now, but just think about it later down the line. And I'm just going to leave it there on that one. Now, I said at the beginning, there's lots of reasons why often we as a nation, we don't talk about money very openly. There's lots of reasons why we should, though. So actually having open conversations can help us to make better decisions when it comes to finances. We can talk things through. So that can really help. It can really help with our relationships as well. You know, just actually being more open with each other and avoiding stressful conversations, you know, things simmering and bubbling up. So it can really help. Um, Also helping to create good habits, not just for us, but those around us. There's so many things that I know I've picked up from my mum when I was younger. I probably didn't know it at the time, but I absolutely did. And that's because she had very open conversations around me about money and budgeting. And I remember when she used to get paid, my mum used to get paid in cash. Now, I will caveat this by saying there are some risks about handling cash all the time, but she used to get paid in cash and she'd put money into envelopes and she'd write on those envelopes shopping money, travel money, like for, you know, running the car. Um, and that's what I've got now. But in Monzo, I have those pots where I pull money into. It's just a more modern way of doing it. But she was always doing it years ago, and I watched her doing that. And I think that's what's really helped me. So thinking about those people around us. And then also can really help to relieve stress and anxiety because we can be in more control. So having an idea of what our budget looks like and what our money's doing day to day can really help us with just taking away some of that stress and anxiety as well. So we spent some time looking at financial well-being, some of the hints and tips we can think about to increase income and reduce costs. What if we've done all of that and it's still not quite enough? What if we're struggling with debt? What if we've got credit cards or loans or store cards or catalogs? And it might not be you, maybe someone you know is struggling with debt. What could be available to them for free to get some kind of support? Well, I'm just going to talk about that for a few moments here because this is one of the areas that I specialize in and I work for PayPlan. We are a free debt advice and debt solutions service. And we've been helping people for a long time now. So I just want to share a bit of information about what's available to you, your family, your friends, anybody. We're here to help anybody that needs it. One thing that we know is that often people wait too long to get support. And one of the things I can honestly say is the quicker that someone reaches out and asks for help, the better that people will often start to feel. And also, it's often a lot easier to actually move forward with a plan. So just what I'm bringing up on the screen here, you can see that the majority of people that do reach out and ask for help have often delayed for quite some time. 21% of people that come to us have often delayed for over 4 years. Um, and I used to provide debt advice. I used to be on the phones giving debt advice every day. And one thing that I would often hear is people saying, I wish I'd called you sooner. I wish I'd contacted you sooner. I feel so much better from talking to you now. So that's something I would always encourage. Do get, you know, get support as soon as you can. And also, please don't worry. You know, a lot of people do get debt advice and do get support. You're not on your own if you need help. The fact of the matter is that in our lifetime, we will all have debt of some kind. We may not realize it, but we will. You know, for example, if you've got a mortgage, that's a debt because all that debt means is I've borrowed money. There's a difference between manageable debt and then unmanageable debt. And the difference with this is, or the trick is to know when that happens and what to do if things do become unmanageable. So, you know, for example, I've got a mortgage. I wouldn't have been able to buy my house without that. So would I prefer to be mortgage free? Yeah, I would. But it has helped me to do a positive thing. So a lot of us will have a mortgage perhaps, or a mobile phone contract. That's a debt. Council tax, bit of a weird one, but every tax year, beginning of the tax year, you'll get your council tax bill, and it will say this is what it's going to cost you for the year. And then what they do is they allow you to pay it back monthly if you want to do that. That's a debt because you're billed the full amount at the beginning of the year, and then you pay back in installments. It could be things like car finance, credit cards, loans, store cards, furniture on finance. It's kind of part and parcel of life these days. So we will all have debt at some point in some way. What should I do though if I start to struggle with that debt? And that's where we can come in. So PayPlan, we are a completely free and regulated provider of debt advice and debt solutions. And we've been around for a long time now. We've been here offering free and confidential debt advice for over 33 years. So we help a lot of people. And if I was to tell you that this was only a year ago, we were supporting 3,500 people a week coming to us for help. We're now helping 4,500 people a week. So we know that things are getting more difficult for people. You're not on your own if you need some support. 4,500 people a week come to us. So, we're here to help everybody that needs our help. We're really proud to offer a very holistic approach. And by that, I mean that we don't just give advice. We can also offer you the solution to deal with those debts as well. And not only do we get feedback, of course, that we always value from people that come to us for help, but we're also recommended by government. So the Money and Pension Service is a government body. They will only recommend free services and only services that they trust. So just to reassure you that we are trusted, we are free. And there's lots of benefits to getting debt advice and debt help, but ultimately it's about helping you to understand what your options are and what can be done to support you with that. One of the things that I know people really worry about is if I reach out, will I be forced to do something I don't want to do? Will I be forced to go into a debt solution I'm not comfortable with? Absolutely not. We're only here to give you guidance, recommendations. It's totally up to you what you choose to do next, if anything at all. You could just call us, get the advice, and then say, I'll leave it there, thank you. So there's zero commitment, and talking to us has no negative impact at all. So you can at least find out what your options are and then make a decision. There are certain debt solutions that will impact your credit score. However, you can at least find out what they are without any impact, and then you can make a decision if you do choose to go forward with a solution or not. And there's many reasons why people do come to us and why maybe things do become more difficult for them. Generally it's just a change in circumstance. Life changes, whether that's because of health, whether it's relationships, jobs, whether it's around, things like cost of living crisis, the pandemic, lots of reasons why people do need our help. And it doesn't matter what the reason is. We're here to help whatever that reason is. And when somebody comes through to ask for help, what will happen is you can come to us in different ways. Whether you prefer to come through and get advice over the telephone or online, that's not a problem. And you can come through and you'll work with one of our really friendly advisors who will start to go through information with you at a pace that you're comfortable with. We don't have any wait lists at PayPlan. So some debt advice services do have a wait list to be able to get help, but you can come through and get help immediately from our service. Some people like to do everything in one go, and others like to do things a step at a time. Do one step today, come back to it tomorrow, leave things till after the weekend. That's absolutely fine. And what we'll do is we'll work with you to explore what your situation is, and then to give you the best advice and the range of options that you can consider. And then you've got all the information that you need to take that away and then decide what you want to do next, if anything at all. And what we'll do is make sure that you get lots of information about the types of debts that you have as well, how to deal with debts that are more important than others. For example, if you had mortgage arrears and a credit card, the mortgage arrears are more important than the credit card because of the nature of that mortgage. So we'll make sure we're giving you lots of support with that. Also, maybe you need support from other services and we can refer or signpost you to get extra help elsewhere if you need other help outside of debt advice. We help anybody regardless of their situation as well. So whether you're employed, whether you're on benefit income, whether you're retired, or whether you're self-employed, we help anybody regardless of their employment status. We offer a full range of advice on all debt solutions. and then help around ways to make the best of the money that you have as well, when you go through debt advice. And some people do worry that they'll have to talk over the phone to get advice. We know that doesn't suit everybody. So that's why we do have a range of ways for people to get help. So you can also get advice over email, live chat, WhatsApp. We also offer services like sign video for British Sign Language interpretation. If you would prefer to get help in a different language, we offer what's called Language Line, and that translates into 240 different languages. And why do we offer digital services? Well, I mentioned one earlier. Some people don't like to talk about money out loud. And if that's the case, that is not a problem. Some people prefer to type it out. Or we have busy lives, don't we? So some people do want to, do things in private, or they might want to do things at home and you've got children and you want to do things later on at night. It gives you the flexibility to do that. Now, I've got some case studies for you here. I'm not going to go through all of these today because I'm going to make sure that you get these as well after the session. And these are just things that you can look through just to see the type of help that could be available if you needed them. So I've put these into the slides so you can actually see these later on. I'll go through this first one though, just to give you an idea of one of the options available. And this was for a couple that came to us. We've changed the name, but this is a real couple, Gary and Simone, who came to us when they started to struggle with their money. And that was just because they started a family. So really positive. They wanted to have some children. They had children, and their finances just started to become a little bit more tight. Their income changed, their expenses changed. And when they came to us, they had just over £32,000 worth of debt that they were struggling with. And that was owed to a mixture of companies. They had credit cards, loans, store cards, catalogs, for example. They had 11 different debts that they were struggling with. And their monthly payments to those debts were £635. So that's what they had been paying up until the point where they contacted us. But because of the change in their income and their outgoings, they couldn't afford those payments anymore at that level. So £635 just wasn't affordable anymore. So we provided debt advice to them. And one of the things we did was we went through their finances and went through a budget with them to understand what their income was and what their priorities were in the home. So we'd make sure that they can cover all of those priorities first, like rent or mortgage, utility bills, travel, childcare, health costs, hairdressing, clothing, all of those things that we need in life. And then when we've looked at what those costs are, what does that then leave them to offer to their debts? And what we could see was that they could only afford to pay their debts £295 a month. So we could absolutely see why they were struggling, because they were originally paying £635. They could only afford £295. So they needed to reduce their payments considerably. But what we were able to offer to them was what's called a debt management plan. And this is a completely free of charge service to them. They make one payment of that £295 per month to us. We then split that money to those debts that they're struggling with. And then we negotiate with them with those banks to try and get all of the interest and charges frozen. So it gives them the ability to pay back those debts as quickly as possible, but at an amount they can afford. And then we regularly review that plan with them so it remains affordable. So it's really flexible. If their circumstances change again later on, we can review that with them. So that's just one example of one of the solutions we provide here at PayPlan. But what we'll do is we'll share with you these other ones so that you can just have a look at them at your own leisure. And it just gives you a few different examples of some of the other solutions we offer as well. And the reality is it's a wide range of solutions that we offer here. There isn't just a one size approach. It's about finding what works for you and your family and what you need for now, but also into the future as well. Now, one of the things that I get asked a lot is, why should I get help? Well, one of the big things that we know is that money worries can really impact well-being and also can really impact mental health. I'm not going to go through all of this, but one of the things that the research that we've shown is that 85% of people that contact us for the first time tell us that being in debt has impacted their mental health and well-being. And that can be in a number of ways: stress, anxiety. But what's really important is to see what can happen positively once somebody reaches out and gets help. So let me just draw your attention to the right-hand column that says life after debt. What are the positive effects when someone reaches out and gets debt advice from us? 93% of people say that once they got help, it improves their mental health and well-being, and stress levels have reduced, which is great. 73% of people say that they found it positive working with us online, not having to talk about things out loud. If that's your preference, then that's available to you. 95% of people said that they were feeling more confident about managing their money. That could be after one telephone call. Great. And then 69% of people felt they could now open up to friends and family. And although that's a smaller number, I'm always really encouraged by that because it just means that people are starting to feel confident to actually ask for help. So the last thing I'm going to really leave you with is how you can get help if you need it. Well, a few different ways. You can call us on a phone number. We're available Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. and on a Saturday, 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. We know that people have busy lives. They might need to work around children, work. So we've got evening and we've got weekend as well. And then we've also got our website there, which is payplan.com/financial wellbeing. So if you want debt advice, you've got that particular website, you can come through and get it. And I'll put that link into the chat in a moment as well for people if you need it. And that will take you to a website that looks like this, and then you can start to get support. And if you're still hesitant about getting help, I always say, don't delay, because as soon as you start talking, you'll start to feel a lot better. Make sure if you do get help, it's for free. There are lots of companies that advertise on TV that will charge you, but the support we give is free of charge. Don't worry that you're getting advice. Advice is just that, it's advice. Talking to us has no impact at all. Nobody will know that you've spoken to us. There's no negative impact from having a conversation. So it's always worth doing. Do make sure that you're working with an expert that can give you proper support. And beyond anything, take some action, because I can tell you now, you'll feel a lot better. I know that I've gone through a lot of different things today with you. Your head might be spinning somewhat. So to make that easy, I'm going to make sure that you've got access to lots of different resources, some that I've talked through today and others that I haven't at this point. But for example, we can send you some resources that help you to have good conversations with youngsters with money, students and how to look after their financial well-being, because we know a lot of younger people are, in university, college. So we'll send you some different resources on that. I've talked about lots of different websites and apps, so credit report apps, so we'll send you some reminders of those, the ways of looking at cashback, being a savvy shopper, Camel, you'll remember that one. Too Good to Go, another great app that you can use. Comparison websites to make sure you're getting the best insurance products at the cheapest price. Make sure that you shop around to look at banking. So I've put these ones on because, of course, a lot of us know about the high street banks, but remember there's other banks out there as well, just for a few examples. The free benefit check calculator that I mentioned, 10 minutes could unlock a lot of benefits. Things about the information about the rent-to-room scheme. And again, you might be thinking, which one do I start with? I just don't know what to do first. So we have got a resource available to you that's called Budget Smart. Now, Budget Smart, again, is free. It's available to anybody, and it just has all of the different things that I've mentioned today in one place. So we'll make sure you get the link to that as well. I'll put that into the chat in the next couple of seconds. And then that's a really good place to start for just more budgeting services. But what I will put in the chat as well is the free and confidential debt advice as well, if somebody needs that. So I'm going to just press there. So that hopefully has come up on the chat. So you've got the free debt advice link, you've got the financial wellbeing resources, so the budgeting documents are in there. You've got the free benefit check calculator link in there, and then the Budget Smart link in there as well. And then I'll make sure I follow up with the slides so people have got access to those if they want them. So that's everything that I've got for you today. A lot that we've gone through. I hope it was useful.